Wow, just like that, back with another Portable Clint. Guys, I have a great guest here today. I've got Hollywood royalty in the house. She is a national treasure here in Hollywood. Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, Beth Grant and her daughter. Wow, I got a 2 for, look at this. Mary, say your last name?
Chieffo.
Chieffo, I get nervous.
Well, in Italy, it's Chieffo.
Oh, is that what it is?
And when we were naming her, we wanted it to sound good the Italian way. So Maria Elisabetta Chieffo.
That's beautiful.
Even though my husband's mostly Irish, but there you go.
And I've known your husband for probably as long as I've been in this business. I've been with him in many waiting rooms. Yeah. Michael is awesome. He's awesome. I love that dude. Okay, so Beth, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Again, Mary, you chime in anytime you want, okay?
Don't tell too much now.
This is, okay.
I got you.
Okay. Beth.
Yes.
When did you first start thinking about Hollywood as something that you wanted to do?
Oh, that's a good question. Hollywood is very, I always wanted to be a movie star. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what being an actor meant. I was a little girl. My mother wanted to be an actress, and I guess, you know, sometimes we let our mothers influence us a bit.
Is that true, Mary?
She had big dreams. Mostly I wanted my mother to like me. Yeah. And she seemed to be very enthusiastic when I would show off, they used to call it in the South.
Where was this in the South? Because I'm from the South as well, but where
well, I was born in Alabama, and but raised in Georgia and North Carolina.
Okay.
And I didn't move to North Carolina until I was 8. So these early years when I was really influenced were in Georgia. And so that's how it started, the dream. But I didn't even know what I was dreaming about. You know, I didn't even know what a movie star was. I'd never even seen a movie, but it was just what my mother wanted. So then over time, I did learn. I went to a conservatory in high school for a period of time, and really started learning about the work and what it meant to be an actor. But I still secretly wanted to be a movie star, truthfully. But I went to New York first and did theater. Fell in love with theater.
Hang on, Beth. When you went to New York, how old were you?
The first time I was 19.
Okay.
And then I was a bit overwhelmed with New York City.
Okay, but Beth, when you decided to pack up the car, did you pack up a car? Did you load up a train?
It was a Greyhound bus, baby.
Greyhound bus.
Greyhound bus with a hippie painter.
What?
And we didn't know what the heck we were doing. But
Who's we? The royal we?
No.
The hippie painter.
The hippie painter, husband number 1.
Okay.
Who's still a very nice person, by the way. And is still a painter, I believe. But that's a whole other story.
Okay. Did you go to New York? Did your husband take you to New York? Because you weren't.
No. There was nobody taking me anywhere, honey. I was taking other people.
Okay, that's what
We had that discussion earlier.
Awesome.
The thing I love about my marriage to Michael Chieffo, her father, is we were talking about this in the car on the way here, is that we really not only have we lasted for 34 years, which
is
in
impressive.
Hollywood is pretty impressive.
Very.
Had a beautiful child who we love, and the 3 of us are like 3 peas in a pod.
Awesome.
I mean, it's a great family. It's what I always really wanted. I was thinking about that this morning. My real dreams, my superficial dreams were to be a movie star, but my internal dreams were to have a family. That's what I really wanted, was love. And when I turn down my street now, I get a good feeling.
That's awesome.
Oh, thank God I'm home, you know. And if they're not home, I'm like, oh. Mary lives in our guest house. She travels, and she was working a lot in Toronto, and but we just love having her in the guest house, and I try to respect her privacy.
Yes,
well, now that my kids are getting older, 18, my oldest is 17, I want what you have. I want my daughter to stay with me. I mean, I don't like this idea of them leaving.
Yeah. Well, you know, she left. She went to New York and went to Juilliard. And
Juilliard. We're going to
graduated with honors and all of that. But, you know, we went to New York to visit a lot. But
I do think that I've often noted that I feel the fact that I had to go somewhere else, being in a different state, and completely own myself, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more later, but to really, certainly as an artist and as a person, because it wasn't just being an adult, it was also because the craft I ended up pursuing was the one that my parents also loved, and I felt I came back so much more independent and autonomous in that.
Yes.
From so it now being in the guest house doesn't feel as like, it's not like I'm just coming back and it's not I'm not retroactively whatever.
I get
it's
it.
Like much more. I'm able to really feel autonomous in the guest house because it's like, yeah, I know myself. I
Yeah,
can do
but
my
that's
own thing.
awesome.
She really
That's awesome.
influences my work now too, because she is better educated than I ever was. Although I went to the school of hard knocks,
Amen, sister.
And there's something to be said for that. But she really has taught me so much, and then she introduced Shakespeare into my life, which I was always so scared and intimidated about Shakespeare. And when she was 13, she played Cleopatra out at Will Geer's Theatricum Britannicum. I can't even say the name of the theater, much less Shakespeare. But then I started working on Shakespeare and acting class. After she did, I thought, I really like learning about Antony and Cleopatra. And so, anyway, and now she, like last night, she wanted to rewatch one of the Star Wars before
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi.
Sure.
And I had seen it and liked it, but by looking at it through her eyes last night, I learned more about the storytelling
it's funny
and the
how that works,
mythology
right? Yes.
and the strong women characters and why it's a special episode for her. And I woke up this morning like at 4:30 thinking about all these things in my own life and reflecting. And so now I'm not saying she's my mother. She can't tell me what to do. But I do find that now, in a way, I'm learning from her at least as much as she is learning from me, and I think maybe a little more. Don't tell her that.
I hear you. Trust me, I know. My kids teach me all the time.
All the time,
All the
right?
time.
So,
okay,
anyway.
but Beth, let's
Yes.
focus on you for a second. You went to New York.
Yes.
You took your husband,
I took a hippie painter
You
who
took
I
a
was not married to.
hippie painter.
Yeah.
And you say that was your first time, but
That was my first time, and I wanted to be, I don't know what he wanted. I think he was just tagging along. But I wanted to be a beatnik and an actress.
Okay.
I think I wanted to be a beatnik more in a way because I had seen movies about beatniks in the village and they
Yeah.
were snapping their fingers and reciting poetry, and I
Beth,
just love the idea of that.
Tell the younger generation what a beatnik is.
Well, Jack Kerouac, I hope everybody
yeah, but I'm
or at
just-
least knows about him.
But your definition of a beatnik.
Well, they were people that questioned the status quo
Okay.
and they rebelled a bit.
Okay.
And I don't know where it started exactly, probably from the Bohemians that
Okay,
were living
okay.
in the village in New York City, I would guess, but I don't really know that's the history. But they were people who questioned status quo and talked about it, wrote poetry about it, wrote books about it.
Right.
Bob Dylan came out of that.
Okay, okay.
And I loved Bob Dylan.
Sure.
And I loved his poetry, and I still do. I still love Bob Dylan so much.
He's great.
And his son, I guess, is really doing.
Well, you
some
got a
great
couple
stuff
of them. You
too.
got Jacob Dylan and you got Jesse
Jacob.
Dylan. Jesse Dylan is a director. He may have directed you in the past. I don't
No,
know.
but I love.
He's awesome. I love that dude.
Well, I love everything about that story. And anyway, so I got to the village, and they weren't there really. The beatniks had passed by, because it was the
What
50s.
year was this? Okay.
So I got there in '69 the first time.
Okay.
And actually, I've written a play about that period,
All
and
right.
I've written the lead role for Mary.
Very nice.
How crazy is that? It's not nepotism though. It's honestly, I started writing the play with my partner, who was my roommate in New York, and Mary read for us one day. What happened? The actress couldn't do it or something, and we said, "Well, Mary, why don't you just read it? We're just going to hear the words." And she was 16 or
She
something.
stole the show?
She stole the show, and we went, maybe we ought to tailor this for her. So we have, and we've done several readings, and so I don't know. My dream is to direct it next year.
Okay.
I don't know if I have the self-esteem really.
Well, you have it. You have it. You just don't see it right this second. But you,
Right, I'm getting
out of
there.
anybody, I know you have it.
Well, I've decided to use this holiday season to try to really question myself and figure out what I want to do when I grow up.
Okay,
So-
well, good. Beth, because
I'll
you
let you
haven't grown
know.
up yet. Don't ever grow up. Beth, so you go to New York. It doesn't really work out the first time.
So I go
Where do
back
you
to
go?
college, graduate from college, get my Bachelor of Fine Arts in acting and directing, go back to New York,
Okay.
started a theater company, produced a play off Broadway at the Garrick Theater on Bleecker Street across from the other end and the bitter end. And then over time decided to come out to LA.
What year
There
was
That was 5 that I came to LA.
Okay, well, Beth, I got to point something out to you. One of your very first credits is probably is my favorite credit of yours.
Oh my God, I can't imagine what it is.
BJ and the Bear.
The Bear, that's how I got my SAG card.
I bet. Tell me how you booked that. Tell me about that little thing. Really
well,
quick.
when I never liked my casting. You know, I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to be like Joan Crawford or Marilyn Monroe. Those were my idols. I did not want to be Thelma Ritter. I did not want to be, you know, Colleen Dewhurst, Autumn Magnani, Maureen Stapleton. Those were not my dream roles. And so when I got to Hollywood, it was even worse than New York. Everybody wanted me to play these character roles, and I wasn't into it. And I kept producing. And so anyway, what was your question?
My question, BJ and the Bear.
Oh, BJ and the Bear. So Jimmy Carter was running for president in 1976, and my cousin was a dear friend of his and had come out for him very early. And I got involved in the campaign, and I was on the national campaign that was based here in Los Angeles, California campaign. And I became a celebrity coordinator. I met people from Universal like Lou Wasserman and Herb Steinberg and Tom Wertheimer. And I called them up after the campaign, and I asked them if they could help train me as a producer.
Wow.
So they put me on a show called Switch, for no money, by the way.
No money.
I worked for
Switch.
free. I'd work from 9 to 5-ish, get on the bus, take it to Hollywood, work at my night job, which was being a night registrar at a film school called Sherwood Oaks Experimental College. We had everybody teaching at that school. Lucille Ball, Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese. People would come.
I've heard a couple of those.
And they would teach for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Tony Bill had an ongoing class where he would bring in guest speakers. I mean, it was fabulous. I studied with Clu Gulager, acting, and we were on Hollywood Boulevard. So as a night registrar, I got free classes, so I worked it out. But I was working, you know, I'd wake up in the morning at 6:30, 6 o'clock, get dressed, get on a bus, go to Universal, get out of Universal, take a bus, go to Hollywood, work till 10 or 11 at night, and then go home, start the day again. That was my entree. So at Universal, I worked with some producers, and I really wanted to act. That was what I really wanted, and I would get access to the breakdown services back in the day, and I'm looking through and I see this part, and it's produced by these guys I know. So I call them up. I ran to the kitchen. I said, I got John on the phone. I said, John, can I audition? He said, oh, we just cast it. He said, can you get here right now? I said, I'm on my way. And I said, I only have on jeans and a t-shirt. He said, doesn't matter. So I got there. I quickly look at the, you know, sides, and then I go in and I audition, and I did do very well.
Awesome.
And the director, Bruce Bilson, looked at John and said, but we already cast it. And John said, you know, but we hadn't booked her.
Right, okay.
So some actors didn't get the part. I'm sorry.
Way to go, Beth.
And then Bruce said, but she's Southern, and John said, it's about a trucker.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
So I got the part, and then it took a while to actually go shoot it up in Oroville, California, and that's how I got my SAG card.
Okay, so now Beth, I was looking at your IMDb page, which is
Yeah.
very impressive. Do you realize you have 229 IMDb credits?
I'm not surprised because I'm 102.
Okay, but now here's the thing. What I'm really impressed with you. In 1986, you booked your second credit, and you have not stopped working from 86 to 2020.
That's
You
true.
have a credit every
Yeah.
single year.
Yeah.
That's impressive,
Well,
Beth Grant.
that's an interesting time because it was 1983 when I realized that I was getting older. I had turned 33, and I had a very spiritual experience watching documentaries about the Olympic athletes, and I called my best friend Karen Grassley, who was the mom on Little House on the Prairie, and I said, Karen, I can't not act anymore. And she said, it's about time. She said, you need to get in the class, you need to get serious, first things first, you need to get, you know, your black belt in acting. And I had lunch with Alan Garfield, Gurwitz, character actor, the next day, and he said, come to my teacher. I went. It was Milton Katsalis at the Beverly Hills Playhouse.
Okay, yeah.
And Milton laid me low. I mean, he was tough. I needed tough. Not everybody does. Everybody's different. But he said, why do you keep trying to be a Rolex watch when you're the salt of the earth? Who are you to look down your nose at Colleen Dewhurst, Maureen Stapleton, Anna Magnani? I said, I don't. I love them. He said, no, you don't. The parts that they do, you don't want to do. So I got it. I got the lesson, and I became a character actress. And once I became a character actress, it took a couple of years. I did a Maya Angelou play in North Carolina, world premiere with my friend Belinda Talbot from the Jeffersons, and
Wow.
kids that I had gone to conservatory with, and came back and eventually got the audition for Picnic at the Amundsen, 1986.
There you go.
And that was it. And I was not playing any lead roles. I was Irma Cronkite, and I was comic relief, and I embraced it, not with a full heart. I still fight it some days.
Yeah.
Some days I'll have an audition for a character-y role, and I just want to look pretty that day. And I'll find myself starting to put on makeup, and I'll go, you're flinching, put down the eyebrow pencil, ah! You know, so it's hard because what is considered archetypally beautiful is not who I am, and yet I think I'm a very attractive woman.
You are, very much so.
My husband thinks I'm really beautiful,
Awesome.
and I love that, but it's not in storytelling necessarily how I can best serve the play.
Right.
Although the other thing that Milton said, which I've done, is once you're established, then you can start doing those leading roles your way. It's like Donnie Darko, I got a lead role. Sordid
Yep.
Lives, I got a lead role. There are projects that I've done where I've had a lead role, and I then do it my way.
Yes.
But this next generation, people like Mary, I think the storytelling is changing. And I think that people Mary's 6 feet tall, which you can't tell her sitting here, but you know, in the past, somebody 6 foot tall, what did they say? Allison Janney said, an agent told her, you'll only play aliens and lesbians. That's it. And
Wow.
so I think gradually the storytelling has changed in that a strong, tall, smart, feminine, sexy woman like Mary
Yes.
can now do lead roles. Now, she did play an alien on Star Trek Discovery, and that's how she, I would say, got her start in the business. But she made her very sexy. She made her beautiful, even though she was an alien. I couldn't believe it. I'd watch it every week. I think, first of all, with all the prosthetics, I could see her in there, and I saw sensuality, and I saw sensitivity. So I think the world is changing. Maybe she'll have to play a few more aliens. Maybe she'll play, you know, people that, what's the word when it's none of your business what sex you are? What sexual proclivity you might have. There's a word for it that, you know, it's just nobody's business, and she may play that. But she will find her way to lead roles and she's already done them. She played Macbeth, she played King Lear. We did with Viola Davis and Julius Tennant, we did a pilot for a series of modern day Othello. She adapted Othello. And Viola Davis did the beautiful introduction to the piece, and it's out in the world now, and you know, we're hoping to sell it and make a series with it. And she plays Iago. So that's a lead role.
Impressive.
That's a different way. So I guess
I mean, and I will say that I obviously have such tremendous respect for that whole journey that we've been through, and I've heard it in various ways. And in many conversations that we've had is I'm saying, like, why aren't those characters the leads? It's not so much of like, why don't we put those character-y roles in the protagonist seat? Who's to say? Because we're all protagonists in our own lives.
Right.
So it's like
Right.
the choice of being a character actor, I hope, is like, I define myself definitely as a character actor, and I say that doesn't negate the fact that I also think I'm a leading
Amen.
person.
Yeah.
So I think that is something that I believe was not enforced, and it's just starting to be celebrated now. There's still a long way to go, because we still do tend to cling towards the typical archetypes in a lot of our storytelling, but we're seeing more people that don't fit that mold getting to be the lead in their stories. So for me, it's a yes and for sure of everything you've said, but it's not saying like, oh well, you gotta be this side character. It's like, who's to say that character can't now be the lead?
Right.
Well, I keep thinking about Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah,
Remember,
my friend.
he's my
friend.
He did so many great character actors, and then he did Sling Blade.
Right.
And that was a character. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And he wins,
Yeah.
wins Academy Award. I think he did.
For a screenplay.
For a
yeah,
screenplay,
sure did.
yes. So, okay, Beth, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if you know this about you. You do, you know. You were in 3 Academy Award winning films.
Yes.
And now, Coen brothers. I like to ask this question. What did you learn from the Coen brothers while working with them?
Well, that's a great question because they are the most organized filmmakers. I mean, they and Ridley Scott, I would say, are the most prepared of any director. I mean, I've worked with great directors. Barry Sonnenfeld is fabulous. Barry Levinson, all the Barrys, Barry Kemp, Barry Levinson, Barry Sonnenfeld, 3 of my favorite people on the earth. And I've worked with all 3 of them. But the Coen brothers, because I guess they write it, and so they see it in their mind, and they edit it, they know what they want. And it's the only time in my life I got the size. Mary was with me on set in Albuquerque. They not only give you your sides for the day, they give you the storyboards.
Oh, wow.
So they know what they're going to shoot, and you get to know where the camera's going to be, if you're far away, if you're close up. And it's such a gift.
Yes.
Now, they're also flexible. We finished the one day Mary was on set, we finished 4 hours early. And they said, anything else you want to try? And I was thinking, gosh darn it, no. I wish I had, but we did everything we set out to do, and I was happy. They said, if you're happy, we're happy. And the crew was very happy that they got to go home 4 hours early. And Ridley Scott was the same way. He had a rehearsal where it wasn't so much about the acting as, I remember Sam Rockwell was there and Alison Lohman, and I don't know if Nick Cage was there that day. I think he was actually, but he just showed us, he drew a little map and showed us exactly where he planned to put the cameras and what the coverage was going to be, asked for our input.
Which makes a world's difference, right?
Oh, you're so prepared. And then when we got to the set, again, I went over and I asked for something. I went over and I whispered to him and I said, I really am doing so-and-so and I think it helps her, and is there a way to get that? And he said, oh yeah, let's try it. I can't remember now if it got into the movie. Matchstick Men is what I did with Ridley Scott. But
that's a great movie, by the way.
But yeah, I think that the Coen brothers, in answer to your question, were extremely organized, and yet they didn't force anything. They were friendly. They were lovely. And Mary, it's okay if I say that she read for them recently. Well, I don't know if that's maybe we should say. Well, anyway, Mary has met them and loves them as well.
Okay.
I won't say any more.
Okay.
Snipers will kill us.
So the 3 movies were two. What is it? With the Coen brothers?
Rayman was the first one, Barry Levinson.
Right.
Who was a blast. Now, the funny thing about that was the Writers Guild strike had happened.
Okay.
And so I never saw a script. I only saw my sides because they couldn't use the script on set. And it was the first time I didn't know that in film frequently people do improvise. And Dustin Hoffman and Tom Cruise were really improvising. And so I had to loosen up. And I will say Dustin was great.
Well, Beth, hang on one second.
Yeah.
When you say you have to loosen up, because a lot of actors, they get on a set, they see who they're working with, and they get inside themselves, and they get frozen.
Yes.
How do you get out of that funk, being frozen?
Well, I was fortunate. It was my first big movie, and I had improvised before. I mean, I had done Eating with Henry Jaglom, and I was allowed to improvise because that's all he did was improvise. There was no script at all with Henry, so I had that experience. I did a movie called Undercover. Jennifer Jason Leigh was in the first play I did, and she actually got me my first movie. John Stockwell directed it, and that was through Jennifer Jason Leigh, and I was very comfortable on that set. So I'd had those 2 smaller films under my belt, and then Dustin was just, teasing me and laughing and joking, and I thought I had prepared. I thought, man, the way I auditioned was the way I was supposed to do it.
Right.
Theater,
Yeah.
You don't mess around with theater. You say it exactly like the writer as you have rehearsed it. So then Dustin was goofing around so much, so I thought, well, let me loosen up here. So when we went inside the house,
and it all starts with the head honcho. If they're loose, it's going to help you be loose.
And the director was obviously Barry Levinson and he came over and whispered to me once. He said, "You're doing good."
Awesome.
He didn't say it loud, but that was encouraging.
Yes.
And I had the character, and I had these beautiful 6 kids, and so I started improvising, and that's what he shot. So the stuff inside was all improvised, and it was because Barry was like that, and he wanted the kids natural, so he didn't even tell them the camera was rolling. He looked at Dustin and he gave her rolling. He looked at me and Tom. He said, we're rolling. And we all just got into place and played it out. And the kids never knew they were on camera.
That's great. because you have 229 credits, I got to jump around out of order. So just know that. But let me ask you another question, because one of my favorite questions to ask is what did you learn from certain people? I have to ask, what did you learn from Keanu Reeves?
Well, I call him Kiki. Keanu.
Yeah, Keanu. I never say his name right.
What did I learn about him?
Because you got to look at people.
I love him. I tell you one thing. I love that actor. I believe in him.
Same here. That's the reason why you got to find out what you learn from certain people, because there's something to learn from that guy.
He was sweet. He was gentle. He was kind. He had a great sense of humor. When we had sometimes long waits between shots, as you can imagine, being on the bus. Mary was on set for that a couple of times, and it was not the friendliest set for children. You don't remember it?
Do you remember that?
I've seen a lot of pictures, but I don't, because I was what, 9
months old.
I was going to say she had to be pretty young.
She was 9-10 months old. So.
Oh yeah,
but she was walking and talking. Let me tell
you.
She was very advanced for her age. That's the truth.
Very traumatized by freeways now.
Well, the weird thing that happened was she came to the set one day, and I ended up doing my own stunts, but they had 2 stunt women dressed just like me. They had 4 dummies that looked just like me, and she literally came on the set and she goes, "Mama, Mama, Mama." And I go, "Here I am." And I can imagine for a kid, she's looking and she's seeing all these people that look like her mother.
That's funny.
So anyway, yes, I would say I learned to be gentle and kind and keep your sense of humor. And I remember the first day I saw him sitting there, we had our costume fittings in our first rehearsal, and I said, that was his first big action movie. And I said, I think it's so exciting. And he was so buff, man. Was he in shape? And he's sitting there just quietly, and I said, I'm so excited that you're doing an action movie. And I said, it's so exciting, it's so wonderful. And he said, I hope so. Gentle and humble, and between long shots sometimes he would goof around, and at one point we decided we were going to do a sitcom about Sandy, and we were going to say, we made up a little song, Sandy, Sandy, kind of cute, kind of nice, and then we had him come in as the boyfriend and falling in the grass and kicking his legs up, and I mean, I don't know what we were doing, just killing time, but he was gentle and fun and had a great sense of humor, and I just loved him. I loved him so much. I would do anything for him. And I tell you, his performance in Much Ado About Nothing, I don't care what anybody says, he is fabulous. You watch that movie, the Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, I remember it.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it is a great movie.
He nails it, and he can do anything. I mean, it's interesting.
He really can.
He's now like this big action star. That's his whole thing, it seems like. But he still does little independent movies too, right?
Yeah, he does everything. It's the Keanu Renaissance right now.
It really is.
Well, good.
It really is. Okay.
I've loved him a long time.
Beth, one other actor I'm going to ask what you learned from. Are you ready? Harry Dean Stanton.
Oh.
What did you learn from that guy?
Well, first of all, he was 90 years old when we shot Lucky, which did become his last film. And what a body of work. And the character actor who became a lead. That's exactly right. Because in Lucky, it was all about him. And there he was, so brave. I mean, showing himself at 90 years old in his underwear with that skinny little body. And just free and loving and sense of humor. God, he was sweet to me. We got along. We hit it off on site. First time I'd ever met him. I had friends that knew him. My husband knew him. From that crowd, the Dantana crowd, and some of those guys were on set.
What's the Dantana crowd? Tell me about that really quick.
Well, guys that used to hang out at Dantana's and drink and talk, and I don't know who everybody was. But David Lynch, I think, was part of that crowd. I don't know who all was there, but my husband knew a guy named Sonny Bones, who's a bartender at Musso and Frank's, and I guess he was a bartender there, and he was adopted. He was friends with Kerouac, by the way, getting back to beatniks.
Yeah.
So Michael had done photography for a book of poetry of Sonny Bones, and so he had gotten to know Harry and all those guys, and so they were just sort of the anti-Hollywood crowd, I guess, even though they're hanging out in the most Hollywood restaurant of all time. So there's that paradox. But Harry, you know, he was just as sweet, and we were enemies in the movie, really. I was trying to throw him out. But we found a great affection for each other. In fact, I kissed him so much, I just loved him so much. I had a picture that I posted on Instagram, and I thought, wait a minute, I can't post that picture. People think I'm having an affair. But I just couldn't stop hugging him. I just loved him. I just think he's an actor's actor. I miss him. I'm sorry I only got to know him at the end. And David Lynch and I really I mean, we had a great relationship too, and David was so good in the movie. And I would say to Harry, let's go rehearse lines. I'm nervous. I want to work on the lines. And I'd wink at David, and we went outside, and we're running lines with Harry. Because at 90 years old, we wanted to support him.
Yes.
And then John Carroll Lynch, came around, and we're all sitting there running the lines, and I felt like we were porpoises. We had a guy 90 years old, and we're swimming and carrying him.
That's beautiful.
Not that he needed to be carried
I know.
with the talent,
Yes.
just his age and his frailty at that age. And oh man, he's just great in that movie. I'm sorry he didn't get nominated for an Oscar. I really hoped he would. I think they're just, it was so low budget and a small distributor, and there just wasn't the money to do the kind of campaign. But boy, love that guy. So
Okay.
I learned longevity. Keep working.
Okay, Beth, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions. You ready? What's your favorite project that you ever booked out of your 229 credits? What's your favorite feather in your cap?
Oh my God, I don't know. No Country for Old Men is definitely up there to be in what I consider a master film.
Yeah, that's not.
Donnie
yes.
Darko, I consider a master film. The Artist, I consider a master film.
I mean,
Love all
seriously,
of
so
those.
much. That's the reason why I was wondering if you could pick. It's like your kids, right? 229 kids of yours.
And I would
it's
love
hard to
them
pick.
all. Yeah, I love every character. I tell you, though, it's funny. Somebody asked me recently in another interview about who I wanted to work with, and I definitely want to work with women directors, women writers. That's definitely the way I want to spend my last 35, 40 years.
Yes, amen, sister.
And I said, I don't even know if you know this, but I said to Leonard Maltin, I said, I really would like to work with my daughter. I'd like to be directed by my daughter. Because I think
that's going to happen.
She
Beth.
has such a director's eye.
She looks like a director.
From the time she was a child. I want her to act too. I know she loves acting, and she's so good. But always, she came into this world as a leader, and it's not always fun to be a leader. But she, we'd play a board game, and she had to set out all the rules and all the stuff, and directing her father and I, and always insisting on first class all the way, and not in a materialistic way.
I get it.
Just like wanting the best for our family.
That's awesome.
So I would love to be directed by her, by other women. I worked with on a film, Wander Darkly. It's going to be at Sundance, directed by Tara. I don't know. Talk about pronunciation. I think it's Miele, M-I-E-L-E. It's Italian. Miele. It's like the vacuum cleaner, I guess. Miele. Anyway, Tara. She's wonderful and produced by women. Sam Houseman and Lynette Taylor Howell. And I love those women. I'd work with them anytime. So I'm really all about that. So let's look to the future and say, I love my next project the best.
Exactly. All right, Beth. A couple of quick questions. Worst days in Hollywood.
Okay.
And again, nothing personal.
No, I can tell you. I was in a movie called Love Field, which was written by Don Roos, my dear Don Roos.
Michelle Pfeiffer?
Michelle Pfeiffer, who I loved. Now, Michelle Pfeiffer's a character actress. She was born to play, she's very beautiful, blue-eyed blonde, that whole archetype. However, we have the same acting teacher too, Milton. She rolls her sleeves up, and she gets to work, and she creates a character, and she gets, how does that character walk? How does that character talk? What's her hairdo? So there are people, conversely, who really, and I think Meryl Streep has become a character actress, probably what she always wanted to do.
Yeah.
She's finally old enough to do the role she probably always wanted to do.
That's funny. That's great.
She's now my competition, though. So, and so is Jessica Lange. My agent called me up one day and said, "Well, you're not going to believe who got the part." And I said, "Who? Jessica Lange." I said, "When did she get in my wheelhouse?" But they're older now, so God bless them. It's fine. I keep working. Michelle Pfeiffer, I'd done this movie, and the part had gotten cut a bit right away, and I knew that, but it was okay. I still had my one huge scene, and I had a great scene with my mom. There was stuff that I had still in the movie, and I get a call one day, and I think it was Madge Sinclair called, and she said, "Beth, we're in the," and I had heard nothing but good things, by the way.
Okay.
People had said to me, "This is going to be very big for you." And implication of very big. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, yes.
And so I was getting very excited. I thought this was going to be my really big break. And so Madge calls and she says, we're in the cutting room in New Jersey. And I thought she was going to say, it's so great. We're going to bring back those scenes. We're going to do reshoots. We're going to do additional footage. And she said, and you've been cut from the film. And
Is this your first time to be cut out of something?
That was my first time. And I couldn't talk. And I just said, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then there was a lightning storm in Los Angeles, which rarely happens. And the power went out, and the phone went dead. And I thought, my God, she thinks I've committed suicide. She thinks I just jumped right off my balcony. And so as soon as the power got back on, I called her off and said, please tell her I'm okay. It's just the power went out, and you can testify. But to this day, I bet she thinks I hung up, but I didn't. And the same time, a commercial I thought was going to run got cut. And I got cut out of it. And I remember lying on my bed in this little condo in Van Nuys, crying my heart out, just surrendering one more time. And I stayed in the movie one little tiny shot, but it broke my heart. It really did. Now, since then, I've been fired 4 times. Once on Mad About You, where I wouldn't leave my trailer. They fired me from the table read before rehearsal. So
I've heard that several times, being fired from the table read.
Yeah, I'm in my trailer, and they're not calling me to the set.
Hang on one second, Beth. I gotta let that thing go by. That's the loudest thing on my show, right there.
There they go.
There they
Hello
go.
there. So yeah, I've had extreme pain, and I've cried, and but you know, you never really get over it if you get cut or if you get fired or you know you don't get that job you really want. I had one recently. I was trying to think that I really, really wanted. It was a pilot. It ended up not getting picked up, and I said, I don't want to take pleasure in that because I really love the kid, the young comedian whose mother I was going to play. But I think, well...
But it sure does help when it gets canceled.
I would just really wish they had seen my Stardust magic that might have helped.
We do joke about that with our family. With my dad, too. We have a certain Grant Chieffo magic. We're like, they just realized got a little special something.
Exactly.
But anyway, so it still is painful, but not as much. You do get used to it.
Okay, 2 last questions. Best days in Hollywood?
Well, having my baby, my daughter, and I'm not kidding, and I was at Cedars-Sinai.
That's where we had our kids.
We're in the labor room, and I could see the Hollywood sign and the Hard Rock Cafe.
I had the same view. I'm not kidding you. I had the same exact view.
You probably the same room.
Yeah, we probably did.
Unfortunately, Mary wasn't born in that room because I had to have a C-section in the end, and so we were wheeled down the hall. But she was there trying to come. She was trying.
I always like a dramatic entrance.
Yeah, she likes to come at her own pace. There was a teacher that she had, a knitting teacher, who said everyone knits at their own pace. And Mary marches to her own drummer. She is her own person. She is not me. I'm a go, 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 go. And she says, wait a minute, let's see, let me get comfortable. I'll do it my way kind of gal. And we're not the same. And I have learned to respect that, you know, and I love it, in fact, and she slows me down sometimes. And so anyway, it all works out. We meet in the middle, but that day was something else.
Okay,
I was on a series. I was on a show called Delta, produced by my dear friend Barry Kemp, and love his wife Margaret, and just had such a joyous time on that set. She was almost born. I was in labor shooting at stage 44. She ended up being in class 44 at Juilliard, and that number 44 has followed her life. So I don't know what's going to happen when she turns 44, but there is definitely. It was very exciting. I had made it as an actress. I was earning my living. I was starring on a sitcom that I loved, and I had a baby at age 43.
Awesome.
I was almost 44.
Yeah.
I was in my 44th year. Yeah. I didn't ever think about that until right now. So that was the best day of all days in Hollywood.
That's good. That's good.
That's true. You said one other question.
Well, one other question is, what's one piece of advice that you've stuck with that's helped you get through this business?
Slow and steady wins the race. And that was a hard one for me to learn. But my husband and I, we have a turtle We have a beautiful mahogany turtle to remind us in our living room, and we just put up the Christmas tree and we moved it in the dining room. I was looking at it, I picked it up, and I thought, yep, slow and steady wins the race. It'll all happen in good time. And you know what? This is going to sound antithetical for any actor listening, but it's not about the acting. It's not about making it. It's not about the career. It's not about the things I thought it was about in my 20s. What it's about is being a human being and allowing yourself to be an artist. Dare to be an artist, my teacher used to say.
That's great.
That's a lot harder than
Yes.
getting out there and trying to get a job. It's like you have to learn to reveal your soul. You have to learn to be brave enough to tell your personal story, as Mary did with those prosthetics. And I'm going, I'll be damned, look at that. How can it be possible that this character touches me and makes me cry? So it's about revealing your soul and about growing as a human being and learning to love other human beings. Corny as it sounds, it's about love, it's about life, it's about being of service. Ugh,
I always hear,
not what I wanted.
I always hear
It is
if,
now.
if you're only an actor and that's all you have in life, then you're going to be miserable.
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Now, Mary.
Yes.
Hello over there.
Hello.
Mary, I was studying you last night.
Oh, great.
And let me wait for that. And I thought about you and what you've done. And I'm thinking, man, at the beginning stages of me wanting to be an actor, I wanted exactly what you've done already. You went to Juilliard. I've always been so jealous of people who went to Juilliard.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you guys were able to provide that for her.
Well, she also had 3 scholarships and she worked.
Well,
so
but still,
let's be clear.
I know,
There's a
but-
reason she's debt free. We were happy to do everything we could, but it was also we were very proud that she worked hard.
Tell me about Juilliard. Tell me about it. Tell me about. Sell it to me, even though it doesn't need to be sold.
Yeah.
Tell me why it's so great.
Well, I really am of the mind that we all, everyone has a different path in regards to like developing their craft and their career. And so I really found that as I was starting to look at schools, different conservatory programs, I wasn't sure if I was even going to pursue a conservatory outright because I was very just generally academically motivated. But what became very clear to me throughout looking the tours and then actually auditioning with their specific process, and then once I was there, was it was catered towards what I love, which is the physical, vocal, full-bodied training, which certain programs, and it's also a mixture of grad and undergrad all in one class, so it's 18 people, but it's about half and half when it comes to that, which is different from the other grad programs and obviously the other undergrad programs. And I found that certain ones that are esteemed and great and work for other people were a little too cerebral for me,
right? Because
I'm naturally cerebral, but I'm also a very kinesthetic person, and I needed a
You're
program.
using some big words around.
Yeah.
What?
What? Wait, what?
But I really did
what?
find
Wait, what?
that my brain is so overactive that I still needed to like hone that and train that, but the thing that I wanted to keep developing, because I did do a lot of dance and soccer, and I'm a very physical person, I needed a program that really had that at its core. And they do have an amazing physical regime. They have a workout class with this fabulous teacher, Daryl, who's been there forever. And then Moni Akim, who's actually quite literally been there since the beginning of the drama program. And with Moni's class, I say it's like Pilates for actors. So it's like a lot of a lot of intense core work, but like with these sort of like reaching for the ceiling, or like motivation and story around the physical intensity. And then vocally, they're very voice and speech oriented. So many different voice and speech teachers. You end up having singing classes from your 2nd through 4th year. And I've always identified as like an actor who sings and dances, as opposed to, everyone kind of has that. But I knew because of that, I also, as much as I love musical theater, and that was a huge like gateway into being a theater person, particularly in middle school, I knew that a outright musical theater program wasn't the right fit for me. I knew that if I approached it from the drama acting angle, I could still really hone that. And they do, Deb Lapidus, who's the singing teacher, is incredible and is able to work with actors who, like, within my class, there were those of us who loved to sing. There were those of us who never wanted to sing, had never sung, or had been, told that they couldn't, so then had like a lot of, stuff around that. And so those were a lot of aspects that really made me gravitate towards it and realize that it was the program I wanted. And then it's funny, on that theme of like, it's more about your humanity, I found in middle school, high school, I was doing all the theater in school, and that was like my escape, and then it went from my escape to my constant reality.
Wow, okay.
And so then I had to actually deal with myself as a person, and I realized I was someone that defined who I was so much by what I did. Like I let my hard work ethic and accomplishments help me feel okay about who I was, because I was so insecure about my personality. And I was like, well, at least I'm tolerable because I do good in the shows and I get good grades and I like do all these things. And so then when you're in class and half the time you're totally falling on your face and failing, you have to be like, are these people still gonna like me even if I'm terrible? And even though you're not terrible, but even if you're whatever.
In your head, you're filling yourself up with these self-doubt thoughts, right?
Yeah. And that was actually my strongest example, and it was almost kind of midway through my education, was in second year they have a Shakespeare slot. They have kind of like predetermined slots for each year that are pretty consistent. And the Shakespeare slot takes place right before winter break. It's about 4 weeks before winter break, so you're already kind of like, and then they always assign some of the most complicated or intense Shakespeare plays. And then it's first and second year, they primarily cast you in roles that you wouldn't be typically cast in, or ones that would stretch and challenge you in ways that you wouldn't typically. So, of course, they cast me as the second half of Lear in King Lear. Wow. Because that's typical casting for me. But really, they gave me that partly, and I will say across my education, something I'm extremely grateful for is that they got who I was. Yes, I am 6 feet and have a strong presence, all that stuff. They weren't like, well, if you want to succeed, here are all these roles where you can diminish yourself if you want to actually succeed in this business. They were like, no, we trust, and they did. They gave me a lot of male roles, particularly male Shakespeare roles, a lot of older women roles, because honestly, if you look back at a lot of the older female roles, women of a certain age are allowed to be more themselves and to be truth tellers, particularly in older plays. Yeah. So, like, one of my favorite roles I've ever done was Nat in Rabbit Hole. Because
she was so funny.
It was because I didn't have to, I was just in my frumpy clothes and just I didn't have to be preoccupied with all of these things that you're usually preoccupied with if you're playing a typically female glamorous role. I think that there's a balance there, and that is part of my ambition, is like you can be glam and that goofy. But with Lear,
look at Meryl Streep.
But with Lear, just kind of the end of that was such a short period of time, and I was playing the second half. The first half was played by a guy, and then I kind of came out during the storm. And the madness setting in, and I was kind of like the Mother Earth archetype, that I literally carried a tree, and it was like super fabulous, and honestly I wish we had more time to actually do the full production of it, because I think it was really great.
Yeah, it was.
But there wasn't enough. By the time we got to my stuff, it was like a week before we opened, because you have rehearsal projects, so they're not productions, but you have everyone at school come and see you, so it's just as nerve-wracking.
Five teachers sitting there taking notes.
Yeah, in fluorescent lighting.
In fluorescent lighting. Freaked me out.
So, but, I had, you get cast in something like that. You're like, I'm going to show them what acting is. This is my destiny. And so I put a lot of, pressure on myself to do a really good job. And while ultimately I am proud of what I did the first night and she was there, we had literally just had our first run of the show the night before. And there's something about that first run where you're being bold and making choices, and there's just, it was, there was something sparking. And so then the next time I came to the show was in front of an audience, and so I was kind of stuck in what I just discovered and trying not to recreate, but then beating myself up for trying to so I was just not in my full, like I wasn't fully present. So I didn't feel so great about that performance. And of course it was the other half of my class was there, because they split us in half for that particular slot. It was the first years who of course I want to impress.
Yes.
And then again, like half of my teachers. So, but then I had a very strong kind of catharsis and had 2 more shows where it was really about letting go about a lot of things. And there were a lot of personal parallels going on there too in my life. But what I found was, from that point on, I really had to confront how much I was afraid that no one would like me if they didn't love my performance. And it was like, no, they're fine. Like, and like, I have to remind myself when I go see something, unless someone's like outright terrible, I'm still not gonna like, the only time I get personally offended by someone's performance is if I feel they don't care.
Yes.
If they're just genuinely not good or not doing a great job, then you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm sorry.
Right.
But if it seems like someone's just like being a jerk, then I'm going to hold it against them. But like, you can't fault someone for being, you know, not in their top game.
Absolutely.
And so I had to recognize that in the same way that I was, you know, less judgmental of people, that they were probably, you know, and everyone's preoccupied. Like I had to remind myself in school, it's such a gift, because you'd be like, right, everyone else is stressed and tired.
Exactly.
They're probably not even watching. They're probably just thinking about
they
their
are, and that's what they're doing.
Well, I would just like to add, having been there that night, she was great. There was nothing wrong with the performance. I just know my daughter, and I felt she wasn't letting go.
Yeah.
You know, she was more in her head, but it was still fabulous.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I made that clear. I was mad at the system.
Right.
I mean, you know, I always thought she was great, but the next night she flew, and I said, oh, there's my girl.
But yeah, I do think it's about allowing yourself to be in process in front of people, which never ends.
Never.
And that
Never.
school
They're always
really,
looking at us.
Yeah, school really taught me that, because for 4 years, basically, from 9 to 5, 9 to 5 class, then 6 to 10-ish rehearsals for whatever project, and then rehearsals on Saturdays. So it's just like you're constantly in progress in front of people. So you ultimately have to either be comfortable.
When did you
with
do your laundry?
The Sundays.
Wow.
Or Saturday night.
When did you learn lines?
That I guess after rehearsal.
I guess rehearsal helps, but still.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Wow.
and I'm not
I
a quick
that.
memorizer. So
See, I'm not either. It freaks me out. Mary,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a compliment. Okay.
I really have.
And this is why I'm excited for you and your future as an actress. You are cinematically beautiful inside and out.
Oh,
I mean that. Seriously. You have a presence, just like you said. There's a presence about you. So I'm very excited about you, and I bet you are too. 'Cause
I can't. That's why I want to
gonna
live
take
so
over.
long.
Yes.
That's why I want to live to 105.
Wait, I'm going to ask you guys both the same question. When you first started, Beth, what was your dream? What did you want to accomplish in this business?
Oh, well, I mean, I wanted what she's talking about.
Well, I know, but
but
I want to hear both of y'all's stories. So I wanted to see if it's the same thing that y'all both started out with. What was the like?
Well, it was fun to get
specifically?
attention. I guess I wanted to get, specifically my mother's attention and love. That was what I wanted
So your whole entertainment drive was that?
in the beginning and for a long time. And then it was to get my brilliant teacher to like me. And here's an ironic thing: they died within 10 days of each
Wow.
other, and that was a rough next
I
year, because
bet,
then I
Beth.
had to figure out, what do you want? And I thought about not continuing, but you know, I got over it. You get through your grieving process, and eventually I started doing it more for me and telling my stories. And yeah, but that's the truth.
What's your dream? What do you want to accomplish in this business?
Well, I will say, and I was thinking about when she was talking about her origins earlier too, is for me, I was raised by 2 character actors, so I was very much around the creative world and acting, and it felt like something that was just, it made a lot of sense. And I did have a lot of other passions and loves. I mean, everything from, like I said, soccer and dance to art history in high school. But ultimately what I've realized is it is the storytelling. And we were talking in the car about, like, with the Star Wars archetypes and all that stuff, I've always gravitated towards these very heightened stories, like fantasy and sci-fi, particularly fantasy and mythology. And because that's so what I loved and gravitated towards, that really, I mean, the through, of course there's the element of, I do like, for some bizarre reason, like people looking at me and paying attention to me. and shining, but not just for the sake of like, oh, look at me, I'm so great. It's like, I hope that the shining can allow other people to feel empowered to shine in themselves. Which is part of why I never have wanted to conform to some other aesthetic that's not my own. Is like, I don't want to shine as something that's not me. I want to shine as my truest version of myself, which is not to say that that's who I am 100% right now. I mean, I think that's the weird thing about growth and progress is like you're never done. So just because you're standing solid in yourself right now doesn't mean that you don't believe that there's room to grow and change.
That's
which
so
is
true.
like,
So
as a
true.
perfectionist is so difficult because you're like, okay, I'm gonna be sturdy here even though I know I have places to go. But storytelling has been the root of, and something that actually came up when I was doing Lear too was I get so idea about the expanse of the story and the arc, you know, be like, oh yeah, and then and Viv, our wonderful director, be like, okay, yeah, great. So what's happening in the scene right now? You know, this sort of, I'm really about broad strokes and big picture, and then finding the nuance within it, which is part of why I do agree that I think I'm moving more and more towards being a director and a producer and championing the story.
You're way too smart just to be an actor.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, you really are. Okay, Mary.
Although actors are very smart.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but you know what I mean. I mean, she
Yeah.
just has a lot to offer.
She does.
And you just don't want to sell it in one
No,
one
she
category.
has stories
Yeah.
to tell. Yeah.
So,
So a phrase that actually she had said about just in life in general, but I've definitely thought about a lot in the acting experiences I've had is the pushing your flowers through the cracks. And that's part of our job. But I've also decided that yes, there are times that you do that, and often
what does that mean? I know what
Yeah.
that means, but what does that mean? Push your flowers through the cracks.
For me, it's like if you're working in an environment that's kind of made out of a lot of cement and kind of set in its ways, but there are some cracks, then there are ways to push. Like I felt that with
I
this
love it.
archetypal character I did on track, which is like Klingon. Like there's so many ways in which that could be a one-dimensional character, but how do you find that vulnerability? How do you find those unexpected moments of love and truth? And so while I do love that, and I think it's a great challenge, and it's about like filling the vessel and making it, I've also decided that why not also find ways to cultivate your own garden? Like,
That's awesome.
there's no,
Yeah, that's
there's
awesome.
no need to always be struggling that much to push your flowers through the cracks. It's like,
Wow,
and so
that's
great.
that's kind of been my
is
newer
smart.
mission
Yeah.
is that like, because for a while I was like, that's what you do, you just push your flowers through the cracks. I'm like, you know what? Just really think that you can find ways to make that a little bit easier. Like you don't always have to be struggling with people who think they know what they're doing.
Okay, Mary, here's one of my last questions.
Yes.
What have you learned from your mom as an actress?
A lot of things. Well, I mean, I always appreciated that, in growing up, I mean, I joked that I was so surrounded by acting, I really thought for a long time that's all anyone did. But she and my dad never said, don't do it. But they would, you know, on a hard day, be like, Dad, remember this day? Or like, remember how sad I am right now? So that's more just like the experience of acting as a career that I was always appreciated, that the honesty about the experience has always been, you know, she hasn't kept anything from me either way, and you haven't not celebrated the positive stuff either. But then, and again, tying into what we were talking about before about being a character actor is, I think that, to me, that's the only way to really be as an actor. I mean, I really do respect people that can play, like, versions of themselves and everything, and I respect that, but for me that's no fun, really.
I can see what you're saying.
I think that I'm grateful to have seen the wealth of characters that she's portrayed and how she works, and she is very meticulous, and you know, it's a lot of stuff that I've inherited, and like caring about the character and caring about the story, and so for me it's really just respecting and loving all of those things, and wanting to take all of that and just keep expanding upon it.
Okay, Mary, that's beautiful. One last question about this is, when you're growing up in the household, did you know when your mom and dad booked a job?
Yes. Yeah, we had a very like when the baby goes, we'd all hold hands.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
We need to keep doing that.
Yes.
I thought about that. Yeah, we didn't do it our last time. We worked together last week on a project, an augmented reality project. We should have yay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next time.
I am so, like I said, I'm excited about your future. And I'm excited about your future, and I want to thank you guys both for doing this. I wish Michael would have been here. Please send him my best.
We will.
We're going to meet him for lunch.
Okay, you guys, one last favor. Will you both look in there and tell everybody bye?
Bye.
Bye.